All right. Well, then today what we'll do is we will recap and go over the back office portion of our training, and that will take us from creating or starting your setup of the of your enterprise of your organization, PEO, ASO Service Bureau, and it will take us all the way into direct deposit generation and reporting and everything in between. So
Okay.
what we're going to do is we're going to start by clicking on the back office option here in the left-hand menu. Okay, that's going to
Mhm.
bring us up our back office tab. You're going to see every enterprise that you have access to. Now, you may only have one, but in many cases, you may have one or more, depending on the circumstances of your organization. We have many clients that have both ASOs and PEOs in their organization, and those would all be set up independently. Okay,
Okay.
so as you can see in my test company here, I have a number, or my test organization here, I have a number of different enterprises, both PEOs and ASOs. So the first thing that we want to do when you are setting up your organization is to choose the enterprise that you want to work with, and let's click on the edit button over to the left here. And this is going to open up our enterprise detail page. And this is going to be almost exactly the same as the data that you are familiar with on the company structure. Okay, you
Okay.
have all the same setup, all the same information. This, instead of the client company, this represents your organization, so your personal company. Okay, so basically you would make sure that all of the demographic information, basic setup is filled out properly, the address, so on and so forth. Here again, we have the ACH bank, the payroll bank, and the operating bank. Those are, as we have discussed before, the same basically as the company side. However, this is going to be representative of your organization. So this will be, again, here is your ACH bank. This would represent your bank account for ACH origination. Okay, and as we talked about before, where on the company side, in a balanced account, in the company structure, the ACH bank is the target that the bank is going to hit to pull that money from. The ACH bank setup in the enterprise level, that's going to represent the originating account. So it starts here. It is then going to target the bank account that you will enter in on the company structure, and then move all of that money to the specific employees. Okay, so this
Okay.
would represent your bank account, the bank account that you are going to use for NatPay. Okay,
Okay.
payroll bank, if your parent company is creating checks, this is where that information is going to originate from. So if you were paying your own internal employees, this becomes your bank account, and the same with the operating bank.
Okay.
So again, this bank account information is IRMA,
Mhm.
not the client.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Next, we have general ledger setup. And this again is going to be much like the wow, I'm getting a phone call from Burma. That's interesting. Sorry, I don't know anybody in Myanmar at the moment. I apologize about that. But
Mhm. No problem.
the general ledger account information here, you might want to come back to, because in our next step, we will be setting up the general ledger accounts for the enterprise. You can, once you have a good chart of accounts set up, then you can come back to the screen and fill out all of the specific information for the accounts under the general ledger setup for the enterprise. And that way we can track the, uh, the payroll transactions for these specific elements. Okay. Now, if
Okay.
you are not really keeping a general ledger, you're not tracking them, then you can use the default information that you're going to have and just fill this in best guess, because ultimately it won't matter.
Got it.
Okay, last information, very similar to that which you find in the company structure. This information is all going to be tracked automatically by the system as you run payrolls, as you do payable checks, and so on. So, and invoicing. You don't really need to enter anything on here. This is just a great place to come back to so that you can see last paycheck numbers for the enterprise, dates, AP check numbers, invoice numbers, and so on and so forth. Okay.
Okay.
The only thing I would say to make a change to would be the last quarter end date. Just go ahead and put in the last completed quarter for the year.
Got it.
Default work state, minimum wage, standard amounts per pay or standard hours per pay period, minimum wage makeup, and here's the parent PEO ASO. Really, what this is going to determine what this enterprise actually is, a PEO or an ASO.
Okay.
Okay. So
Yep.
incredibly similar to what you are already familiar with in the company structure. You just want to fill this out for your enterprise.
Got it.
Okay. Any questions on the data that we have here? Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, perfect. Then I'm going to click cancel to leave that. Now, once we have all of the information in the shell completed, now what we want to do is click on the name of the enterprise. And in a few seconds, we will go to the enterprise dashboard, which is going to give us all of the options on setting up and operating the back office functionality. Okay, so now you'll notice that we have a number of different tabs here on the screen. So we'll start with the first one, which is chart of accounts. Now this is, and let me close that out, this is going to be the same in functionality and setup as the company level chart of accounts, except this is, as everything here, is going to be on an enterprise level. So this would be the enterprise, your IRMA chart of accounts, to be assigned to your invoicing and your payables and things like that. Okay. So on the company level side, under administration and setup, that's company specific. And in this case, this is IRMA specific. Okay. So you can go through and take a look at any of the default information that you have here and get rid of any that don't apply to you. You can feel free to edit some of the data in the existing chart of accounts if some of these can be kept. You can't change a GL number once it's created, but you can change the descriptor or the account type. Okay. Now, if you are creating a fleshed out chart of accounts for your organization, then what we want to do is click Add New Record. And this is going to be the same setup that you find on the company level. Enter in a GL account number, enter in the descriptor. That can be whatever you want it to be. It's going to show up on the screen, on reports, and so on. And then the account type that you're setting up from the list of items that we have here. Okay. And then once you've got those three elements in place, just click Insert, and that will put that GL account in place, and you can continue on from there. Okay, so it is almost exactly the same in functionality as the company level. So are there any questions about setting up your chart of accounts under the enterprise?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, and again, this is your IRMA level and not the client company.
Yep.
Okay, so once you've got your chart of accounts done, you can click on Agents and Coordinators. Agents and Coordinators is an area where you can set up and track individuals who are either running the payrolls for your organization or create and track the sales staff. So in our system, we are going to need at least one of each type, one payroll coordinator and one sales agent. Okay, if you aren't really going to track a number of payroll staff, or you don't have or don't want to create and track records for your sales agents, your sales staff. Just put in something like we can see here: default payroll, default sales, and that covers the bases of what we are going to need in a couple of more steps, and I'll show you in just a bit. That require a sales agent and a payroll coordinator. And ultimately, what you are going to do with this is you are going to be able to assign for each of your client companies, when you're creating their billing schedule, to what's going to be on the invoice. That billing schedule allows you to assign the person who is responsible for running that payroll, the payroll coordinator, and also assign the person responsible for the sale of that company, so the sales agent. So that way we have a record of each client company, who's running that payroll, and who made the sale for that payroll. This also allows you, for sales agents, to create commission schedules, and all of our commission schedules are based on invoiceable line items. Okay, so you can determine which sales agents are eligible to receive commissions based on the invoices, and then you will select how they are commissioned based on what line items they're going to generate that commission from. Okay, so to create a sales agent and a payroll coordinator, we want to click the Add New Record button and fill in the details here. Okay, so the first thing we want to do really is come over to the right and create the code. Okay, I usually create codes right off the bat with everything. Now, this code is going to be the same format for every other code in our system: one string of letters or numbers, no spaces, punctuation, or special characters. Okay, otherwise it can be whatever. Once you have the code in place, we want to enter in the agent's name. Okay, so this can be the name of a person. You can put, if we're creating, if we're creating that default payroll coordinator, you can call it the default payroll coordinator, whatever it is, so that you can identify this person. Okay.
Okay.
Stub and a street address, PO box, city, state, zip, country, telephone and fax if you have it, email address as a contact. Moving over to the right, once the demographic information is input, we've already got the code in place. We'll select the type that we're creating, either the sales agent or the payroll coordinator. Okay. Now, if this is a sales agent, you can select the commission applies to debit devices or invoices if they are going to receive commissions based on that. If not, leave it blank. And then if they are going to receive a commission, we can decide whether that is a check or a direct deposit. If it's a check, click the check. If it's a direct deposit, click that one right there. And then you can enter in the bank account, routing, and account number that you want that commission to be ACH to. So basically, that would show up as the just like a regular employee's direct deposit.
Got it.
Okay.
So okay.
Did I hear a question?
No, well, I'm thinking of, in my own head, of the company that we're setting up, where they have a bunch of people who we enter in as like 1099. They get paid.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a commission on what they sell.
Okay.
And we were not to payroll as like a 1099. So instead of doing that, we could just as well do it this way. Set them up as the actual agent, or no?
Yeah, you theoretically you could. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what this will do is, again, you could add those individuals as sales agents and assign them to specific companies, and then you will be able to determine which billable line items for those companies are going to generate their commission.
Mm-hmm.
So if that works for you, then yes, absolutely, you could.
And do you assign these agents on the company level somewhere, I'm assuming?
Yes, I'll show that to you.
Okay.
It's going to be in the client billing schedule here. When you set that up, you will assign, for each client company, you will assign one payroll agent and one sales coordinator.
Okay.
So yeah, in your scenario, if I understand you correctly, then you could set those individuals up to have commissions based on the invoices generated for the specific companies they're assigned to.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So insert those records and then do one for a payroll coordinator, one for a sales agent, and that's all you need unless you really wanted to flesh things out. Okay. Now, if we want to set up a, if we wanted to set up a commission schedule for the sales agent, click on the arrow over here and we can add new records. And then what we want to do is we want to select from the list of items that will be in here, and you may have to come back to this area once you create your products and services, which are the billable line items. You are going to nominate which of them are commissionable, and those billing items will then show up in this list. So in my enterprise right now, I only have 2 billable line items that are eligible for commission. You can see collect pays and hours worked. So you may have a lot more. Okay, so what you would simply want to do is select the billing item that that person is going to generate a commission from. You will enter in a sales low and a sales high. Basically, you're telling the system from a line item value of X to Y, so a certain monetary range. If it is within that, they will receive a certain percentage that you can put in here. Okay.
Okay.
So you would put in a value as a decimal here, and then insert.
Okay.
Okay. And then what it's going to do is once you have that in place, when the invoice is created, and generally what we've seen clients do is they will use a line item for collecting of gross wage, because most often I have seen commission schedules based on a percentage of the gross pay for a client company. So they will select the gross pay line item and then a percentage of that here, so that when the invoice is created, the percentage is calculated and created as a commission check based on this record here.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. And then you would continue this process until every billable line item that this person is generating an invoice or a commission from has been created. So it's pretty straightforward. Do you have any questions on creating commission schedules?
I don't think so. Not right now.
Okay, no problem, no problem. So are there any questions regarding how to set up agents and coordinators?
No.
Okay, well then let's move to vendors. Vendors is an area of the system that has 2 uses. It's going to be used by you or potentially by you to set up non-payroll related third-party vendors where you can create recurring payable checks. So this would be something like your rent, your electric bill, your caterer, your mobile detailer, something outside of the processes that you use the software for. Okay, so basically anything non-payroll related. Okay, now we also use this as a vehicle to perform other duties within the system, but you will be using this exclusively for any and all non-payroll related vendors. Okay, so if you were going to set up a recurring payable for, let's just say, your landlord for your building's rent, we would add a new record, and then you would fill out the information on this page. Vendor code, and that is going to be just like any other code, 1 string of letters or numbers, no spaces, punctuation, or special characters. The vendor name over to the right, That's how you're going to see that on the screen, on the check stubs and different things like that. Then just come in and fill in the demographic information for this vendor, whatever it is that you're creating. Check off whether or not a 1099 is required, ACH or tax ID. You can leave that alone. That's usually normally used by us internally.
Okay.
Access code. If you have an access code that's necessary for a vendor for some reason or another, maybe to get online somewhere to review an account, you can enter that value in here, and that will be stored for you. Payment status. Recurring is what you want to select. We also have active or inactive. So if you have a recurring payment and you want to turn that off, just make it inactive.
Okay.
Active is going to be used by us for some of our other codes that we set up in here for you. Okay. Standard amount, that is going to be a value, monetary value, when we're creating these recurring payable items. So this is going to be the value that you want to create on a regular basis. So if you want to say, okay, my rent is $1,200 a month, then we'll just type in $1,200, and that's how much that payable would be created for. The pay frequency is going to determine when the item is going to come due. So select from the list we have here. Maybe it's the first of next month. Payable account and expense account. These are going to be drawn from the chart of accounts that you have available from the previous step on the enterprise level. So choose the appropriate payable and expense account to go along with this vendor. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Memo. This would be just a little memo for you to be printed on the payable check. So just a little note of whatever you might want to have in there. Last payment, last page, all of these can be left alone. These will be modified and tracked by the system as these items are created, so you don't have to do anything with that. And then the payment type, either a check or a deposit. Okay, and if it's a deposit, you can put in the bank information below that. Okay.
Okay.
Do you have any questions on vendor codes?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. And again, these are, something that you can use or you don't have to. Again, it is for anything that is outside of the payroll process.
Right.
Okay. Next, let's take a look at products and services. Now we're getting into the meat and the bones of invoicing. Products and services, when we open that tab, this is going to be the master list for the enterprise, for your overall organization, of every billable item that you will be able to assign to your client companies. Okay, so in this example list, we have admin fees, benefits collections, all kinds of deduction credits, employer food, basically anything that you can think that you want to bill for your companies. Okay, so what you're going to do is click on Add New Record, and we're going to fill out this form right here. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is start with the item code. Okay, and code, just like any other in the system, one string, letters or numbers, no spaces, punctuation, or special characters. Item description, that can be whatever you want it to be. That's what's going to show up on the screen, on reports, on your invoices. Next, we go to calculation method. This is how the item is going to be calculated. So we have a rather long list of things that you can collect for.
Oof.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so it's just about anything you can think of that you want to collect for. Specifically, specific items such as employer SDI, employer savings, employer health, employer side things. So these would be specifically these items. We also have calculations, unit price times an admin fee, unit price times a direct deposit amount. So these allow you to collect for and manipulate the numbers for other elements. Unit price times a gross pay. So maybe your maybe you're creating an administration fee for your client companies, and you want to collect a percentage of gross pay. So we can select the unit price times gross pay, and that is then, will come down to the unit cost and the unit price, but this is the calculation method that you would use. The unit price would represent the decimal value of that percentage, so that when this is calculated, it's going to take and multiply that this value times the gross pay to get your results. So this would allow you to create a percentage of gross pay as a line item for an admin fee, or many other things within the list. And we have just about everything that you can think of to bill for here. Number of people, number of pays, unit price times the per diem, unit price times the printed check amount. You can do unit price times the number of checks printed. So, unit price would be, whatever, if you were charging a per check fee, unit price times number of checks, 350 times the number of checks, that would be your fee. So just about whatever you can think to bill for is in this list. Okay, we also have one, and let me highlight that one, unit price times the quantity entered by the user. Okay, the unit price in this case would be 1. So then what will happen would be, when you create the invoice for whatever line item this is, this gives you the ability then, quantity entered by the user, you decide what's going to be on that line item. You decide what the total is going to be. So you just plug that in and go. Okay.
So is this also where you set up like for taxes and stuff too?
Yeah, absolutely. We have, let's see, unit price times the federal tax liability. There's one right there. So that would, then, this line item, if we put a 1 in the unit price, that is then going to create a line item that's going to calculate and display the federal tax liability for that company's last payroll.
Okay.
And you can break those out individually if you like. So generally, just about everything that you can think of to bill. Now, one thing I will bring to your attention, any line item that says multi-billing, okay, we see dental match multi-billing, blah, blah, employer health multi-billing, anything that says multi-billing, what that is going to do is, when you create the invoice, it is going to explode it out and give detail. The most common thing we see that with is going to be, let's see, workers' comp multi-billing. Where are you?
Last one.
Yeah, yep, there it is, workers' comp multi-billing. Sorry, your eyes are better than mine. This is the most obvious one for client companies, because what this is going to do when you see it, you will generally have multiple workers' comp codes in play in a company. When this one line item goes on an invoice, when the invoice is calculated, the total amount is then broken out into each individual workers' comp category with a total for each. Okay? So you can also do these as lump sums, but anything with a multi-billing is going to break out the detail on the invoice. So we also have a SUTA version of this, SUTA multi-billing. So let's just say you have a company that has multi-state jurisdictions. You have people that are being collected for SUTA in multiple states. The SUTA multi-billing would then have one line item that's exploded out to show the individual amounts of the SUTA by state. So again, you have the option to lump sum these, or if you want a broken out detail, you can select the multi-billing options. So that's just what that is.
Okay.
Okay. So now, once you have the calculation method in place, we're going to come to the reference. Okay, here's an important point. The reference box, always, 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 I'm going to copy and then I'm going to paste. The reference must always match the item code exactly. Otherwise, this will not function. Okay, so when you look at this, the last thing that you want to look for as soon as you insert it is to make sure your item code and your reference match exactly.
Yep.
Okay. Originating ACH account, you are going to see two. You are going to have one that says NACHA EE deposits, and you are going to have one that says NACHA sweeps. Okay. When you are selecting the appropriate ACH account, any billing item that you create, always choose the client sweeps option. Okay. The other option that's going to be there, the NACHA EE deposits, I will use that. The only thing that that is going to be used for is the line item that I will create for you called the NACHA placeholder. And the NACHA placeholder is really going to be the catalyst for creating any employee direct deposit file for your companies. So I will create that for you. So it will appear here in your master list of billable line items. The only thing that you will be responsible for is when assigning billable items to the client billing schedule, you must always have the NACHA placeholder assigned to a company that's going to generate direct deposits. Okay, so that's very important. Without that NACHA placeholder in the client billing schedule, no direct deposits would be generated in the e-payments area for a company. So always make sure if a client company is going to be doing direct deposits, always make sure to assign the NACHA placeholder.
And that's
here's
in
an
the
example
company
of that right here in my example company or my example enterprise. You'll see the ZZZ NACHA placeholder. And it's going to be a zero value, so it won't generate any totals, and any zero value item on your invoice will not translate to the final item. Okay, so that's just so that you can put a whole bunch of different line items on your client billing schedules that may not necessarily need to be there on the final product, so that it doesn't overcrowd it. Okay. So again, when you are creating your line items, always choose the client sweeps option.
Okay.
Okay. Revenue accounts, cost accounts, commission payable, commission expense. These are all GL accounts based on or generated from the GL accounts set up for the enterprise. So best guess and assign them if you're not going to be tracking a GL account. If you are, go ahead and enter in the appropriate revenue, cost, commission, expense, and payable in these list boxes here. Once you have the GL accounts assigned, the next items we have are the unit cost and the unit price. Okay, the unit cost is the hard cost of the item. The unit price is what you're going to bill it out as. Okay, generally with any of the unit prices or any of the specific employer items that you see up here, you're going to want to put a 1 and a 1, basically meaning a pass-through. So okay. Workers' comp multi-billing. So we just want to do workers' comp. We don't want to mark up anything. We want to just put a 1 here because I think ultimately it's going to multiply the workers' comp total by the unit price, which is going to be 1. So we just want the base numbers. Okay, so a unit cost and a unit price, 1 and 1 would represent a pass-through, and it would just do the basic calculation that you see here. Okay, just for instance, unit price times the number of people. Okay, there's really no hard cost to you, and there's no additional markup. If you just want to bill for the number of people, that would do it. Now you can always change the unit price based on the calculation method that you've chosen to adequately represent what you are trying to bill for. Okay, let's just say
Okay.
I chose this unit price times the number of people, and I want to charge $5 a person. So what we would do in that case is simply put a 5 there, and now uh, when my invoice is created, it is going to multiply the number of people by $5.
Okay.
Okay. So the unit price is what you are going to basically bill the line item at in that calculation.
Okay.
Okay. Now the difference between the unit cost and the unit price would then be translated over into one of the back office reports called profitability. And what that's going to do is it's going to run a comparison based on your invoice line items, and it is going to compare the unit cost that you select versus the unit price and give you a differential. Okay, so again, unit cost is the actual cost of the item, and the unit price is what you are going to bill it out as. Okay. And finally, we have some checkboxes. The first one is taxable. If you are creating an invoice item and you are in a state where that item would be taxable for some sort of sales tax, then you can select that right there. If not, leave it alone. Editable on an invoice. If you want to be able to edit the item description on the invoice, check that box there. I like to do that because I will create, generally, I like to create an invoice item called miscellaneous, and I just leave it there. And it is a quantity entered by the user, so I don't have to use it if I don't want to, but I use it as a catch-all. If I have something when I'm creating an invoice and I'm like, oh man, I need to add this as a one-time deal to this invoice, instead of having to come back to this area or the client billing schedule and assign something, I can just change the name of the line item from miscellaneous to something else, type in the value I want to collect, and I'm good. So I like to have one or two different miscellaneous items on my invoice in case I need them.
Sure.
Okay, so again, editable on invoice, checking it will allow you to change the item description when you're creating that invoice. Okay, percent-based. If you select this, then the number in the unit price is going to be read as a percent and not a dollar value.
Okay.
Okay, so in that case, if you were doing something like, let's go back to gross pay, gross, whoops, wrong one, gross pay. Okay, let's just say we wanted 3% of the gross pay, okay? We could do it either baseline, 0.03. So this is going to be a simple calculation, gross pay times 0.03. That's going to give you your amount. Or you can select percent-based, and if you do, change that 0.03 to a whole number. So that's now going to be read as 3%.
Okay.
So 6 of one, half dozen of the others. There's many ways to skin the cat.
Sure.
Okay. Next, we go to commissionable. Off by default, this allows you to decide which line items you are creating are going to be eligible for someone to draw commission from. So as we saw in the previous step where I was looking at the line items that I can assign, only 2 of those billing items had that check next to it. Okay, so this again allows you to determine if this billing item is going to be eligible for commission or not. And then finally, we have a discountable. Off by default, but if you want to allow for a specific discount, which is then entered in on the client billing side, this will allow you to decide which elements or which line items are eligible to be discounted. Okay, if not, leave that blank. And then click the insert to put this in play. Okay. Once you've done that, then just repeat this process until all of the billable items that you want to assign to your clients have been created and you're ready to go. So now I know this is a little bit complicated. Do you have any questions immediately. I know you'll probably have some as you are creating them as you move forward.
I do have one quick, the originating ACH account drop down there,
Mm-hmm.
that client sweeps. Where does that come from? I know
I'll
you said to
create
always
that for you.
choose it.
Yep,
Oh, okay.
Yep. I will create the item for you, so all you will see it. All you need to do is select it.
Okay. I was just checking because I'm kind of doing my own as we go along here, and
Okay.
I don't have anything in that
Got
drop
it.
down.
Yeah,
So.
because I need to once I can create that once you have filled out the banking information for the enterprise setup. Once I
Got
have
it.
all that
Okay.
information, I can create those specific elements, and you're able to assign them.
Okay. Good enough.
Okay. Any other questions on creating the products and services, which are your line items?
I don't think so.
Okay. Perfect. Well, as you're doing it, just call us up and we'll help you through it.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Mhm.
And you do have a great level of flexibility with all of these items that you can potentially bill for.
Yeah.
So this can be, gives you really the flexibility to create a unique invoice for potentially every client you have.
Yeah. That'd be. I'm specifically thinking in my head of like time and attendance billing.
Okay.
So.
All right. Then once your products and services are all built, and you can see I've got 3 pages of line items that I can choose from for my organization. The next thing I'm going to do is go to client billing schedules. Okay, client billing schedules is going to show you all of the client companies that have been assigned to this enterprise. Okay, now what you are going to do in each case is first, for each client company you have, click on the edit button. And this is going to bring up the billing detail setup. Okay, now this is all going to be blank. Let me see if I can find let's see if I have a company I haven't set. Here we go. So this is what you would see. For a brand new company, all this information is going to be blank, and you'll simply need to fill it in. DBA name, whatever the client company's name is, contact information, email address, your street address, PO box, city, state, zip, blah blah blah. All of this demographic information. If you enter in a valid email address here, this is going to allow you to email this individual once your invoice has been created to let them know that it's been done and the bottom line numbers. Okay. Over on the right-hand side, choose the ownership type associated with the company. Here is where you are going to assign the sales agent and the payroll coordinator that we created in the previous step. Okay, so here I would say my sales agent is Default Sales and my payroll agent is Todd Lancaster. Okay, so this is how you make those associations right here.
Okay.
Choose the state that the company is operating in for sales tax. The system will know what is eligible and what is not. But so just put in the state that the company is operating in. Your workers' comp billing. When you were creating your workers' comp codes, you had up to 6 different bill rates. You can select the appropriate bill rate here. So generally, bill rate 1, but you can select any of the other bill rates through that as well. So what's going to happen is if you have a workers' comp line item on your invoice, the invoice is going to calculate based on the number that you have in bill rate 1 or whatever other option you select here. Billing type. The billing type is going to be selected here, and we have basically 2 of all these. It really boils down to 2 different types of invoices. Okay, one is your standard invoice. Okay, this is going to represent a document that you send out to the client, and it's going to show them what they owe. What have I logged in? Okay. And that is going to be intended for you to collect that invoice via cash, check, charge, barter, or whatever. Okay? So you would submit that